Hello and welcome back to this video series. We're setting up Centrify Privilege Service customer managed and high availability using Windows Failover clustering. And in the previous video, we stopped the services and we cleared the CNAME that we had created. Now I'm sitting on my primary node and I need to onboard the role. So the role is actually a generic script. It's provided by Centrify and it's sitting under Program Files, Centrify, Identity Platform, and under the scripts folder, it's this guy over here, the IIS PGSQL cluster, right? One of the things that you can do is you can shift right click and notice that says copy as path. That's going to make your life really easy, so we have the path in memory. All we need to do now is do a routine operation in Windows Failover clustering, which is to onboard a role. So I'm going to open Failover Cluster Manager, right? I want to make sure that my nodes are all eligible. Notice that I still had member 3 here paused. So I want to make sure that this is actually already running here. So it's up and up. And we're going to onboard a role. So we're going to right click, configure role. This is going to be a generic script role, right? And here I'm going to copy what I had in memory, which is the path to the script. So I'm removing the quotes just for for accuracy, and I'm going to go ahead and press next. Notice that it's asking me for the client access point. Guess what the name is? It's the same name as the service address, and obviously you need to have an IP address, a fixed IP address that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and press next, and what's going to happen is at this point I need to select what is going to be the shared disk. In this case, it's my E drive, because it has the database data. The other disk is basically my witness. And now I'm going to try and confirm all these changes. So right now, Windows Failover clustering went out, and in Active Directory, it will create basically a record. So you can look at it in DSA. It's on the computer. So notice that I have the management object, and I have basically this role. Going back to here, I can press finish. And notice that it's already running on member 3, and I can actually start looking at it. So let's go ahead and try to connect, and you can do this from any machine, right? And I'll be able to basically connect to it. And ultimately, we want to make sure that it's connected to the right node. So notice that Windows Failover Clustering is reporting that this is connected to member 3. This is the owner node of the role. And if we do about here, notice that is the owner role. One thing that you can do is you can do an administrative failover, right? This is where you move. In this case, it's a 2-node cluster. If I pick best possible node, it's going to try to come to member 2. Right? Ultimately, when you're doing these operations, you want to make sure that you monitor some services like the database service. So get service. Notice that it's saying that it's starting, and obviously W3SVC. So this one is already running. So typically the database runs a little slower, but I mean, what you can start doing is looking at some other configuration here. So when you look at the safe role, look at the resources that it depends on. You can look at the dependency of it. So show a dependency report. It's going to show you what this role depends on. Notice that it depends on the network name and the physical disk. Obviously the IP address is at a lower layer, right? You can also look at the failover options of the cluster. Notice that it's going to say one failure every 6 hours. So that's because n-1. So we have 2 nodes minus 1. It's 1, right? So if you're testing, you may want to bring this up because this will only take 1 failure. When you look at also at the IIS and Postgres script here, notice that these are important parameters here. It's going to pull every 5 seconds, right? And the policy says that only 1 failure within a 15-minute interval. So you may want to bring this up. If you have more clusters, you say you have a 5-node cluster, this is going to be 4 right there. So you want to make sure that you tweak those, especially if you're doing testing, because when you're doing testing for high availability, it's about understanding what is the expected result. So with that, notice that is in member 2. I can probably just do about, and notice that is member 2 here. So we have a working cluster. The next step would be to add connectors.